This is episode 31 of the Taproom Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. Fun episode today. I got to interview, or talk to, I should say, Latreace Harris. Her Instagram is @theberrygodmother. She was really nice. We got to, talk for a little over an hour. We had a good time, good conversation. Got to learn more about, everything that she does. Obviously being like a certified beer server, on her way, to being a Cicerone and all that stuff. Also, she was in the Wine Enthusiast Future 40, which was really cool to read about. And she does like beer education. She has her own company with their Berry Godmother LLC. She's just, like I said, overall just really nice. We got to have a great conversation. We got to enjoy beer while we talked, stuff like that. So it was really fun. So it's really I think you guys are going to enjoy hearing about her craft beer journey. And but let's jump into this week. So we got I got a couple brews here. First one is one of Gunner's favorites. It's from Beechwood over in, I believe it's in Long Beach. Let me just make sure. I'm pretty sure it's in Long Beach. No, Huntington Beach. So yeah, canned and brewed by Beechwood Brewing in Huntington Beach, California. This one was the canned is 8.3, not bad. And this one's called 28 Haze Later. It's a hazy IPA coming in at 6.8%. So this is, right up Gunner's alley. 45 IBUs. Let's see. Malt is Pearl and Flaked Oats. And the hops are Mosaic, Citra, and Galaxy. Can't really beat those three. So let's crack her open, eh? Alrighty. Let's get this whole thing situated here. Alright. Geez, it is really, super hazy. You can't see no clarity at all, which is always good in a hazy, obviously. But let's jump in. Definitely floral notes, obviously, from all the hoppies. That's pretty freaking good. And I know, like I said, Gunner loves this one. I don't drink it as often. Because that's like his go-to. I'm always trying to change it up or trying different beers from different breweries, but this one's solid. I'm gonna give it, I think it's solid. I wouldn't go as far as say like there's, you're gonna go home and write about this one. But I think it's really good. It's a really solid hazy. I'm gonna go 7.5. I think it's pretty good. Some of my favorite hazies are, from Green Cheek or, also, like Lost Winds, stuff like that down in San Clemente. Also anything that North Park puts out or 8-bit, but really solid. I could definitely drink these all the time and be, happy with that. Jumping to some headlines. Aaron Rodgers got hurt on Monday night, tore his Achilles. It's obviously big. Like, you never want anybody to get injured or anything like that, but that sucks for him. Hopefully he can come back strong. I was even reading an article today that they were trying to see if they can get him back for the playoffs. So there's talk of that. We'll see if that actually does happen. But, I've never heard of anybody coming back, that quickly from an Achilles, like a full Achilles tear or even an Achilles tear in general. Even for the Braves, Mike Soroka tore his Achilles twice, and he was out for multiple years. So he's been out for multiple years until this year he started to come back. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully he can. But this experimental surgery he did, man, if he's able to come back, then, more power to him. Good for him. But yeah, so well wishes to Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully he gets better. Next thing, Jordan Love. He, for the Pack, he looked pretty good in his first start. He did miss a few throws from what I saw in the first half of last week's game. But he looked like a pro. That's all you can really ask for. If he can kind of go out there and lead the team, he doesn't, not necessarily be just like a game manager, obviously, because I would never want to, categorize him like that. But I feel like in his first start, he didn't, do anything to lose the game, but I thought he did make some throws where you watched him and he kind of reminded you of Aaron. in some of the throws that he made when I was watching some highlights. But obviously it's one start. You don't want to, I'm not going to be like everybody else out there where they're like, oh my gosh, Jordan Love is the new Aaron Rodgers. You can't make that comparison, and it's an unfair comparison so early on in his career. But he looked good. I feel like it was a good stepping off point. Right now, I think they're losing. No, I think they're up by 1. Last time I checked, the Pack against the Falcons today. I'm recording this on a Sunday. 17-9. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. We'll see. Actually, later today, I'm going to be going out to Talon Tap and Wine, I believe it's called. I'm going to go hang out with Juan and Justin from Snacks on Tap. We're going to do a little episode over there, so that'll probably be out sometime in mid-October. We shall see. I'll keep you posted. But yeah, it was, like I said, Jordan Love looked okay. Looked good in his first start. Hopefully he continues to do what he's doing. It's still early on in the season, but we'll see. Another headline, Mel Tucker from Michigan State. There's sexual, what do you call it? Sexual assault, or I can't remember what it was called. There's some allegations going around. Also, we'll just say sexual misconduct going around. I kind of have a hard time seeing him coaching there again, if that is the case, if everything comes out, because I can't even begin to speculate on what had happened. Just from what I've read. So you never want to get caught up in stuff like that. You want to, just keep to yourself, But yeah, I highly doubt he's going to be coaching there again. Yeah, the NFL was back last week. That was, it was pretty fun. I got to watch, some games. It was kind of tough because fucking Packers get blacked out because the Rams out here, because I'm obviously out in Los Angeles, so it's understandable. But it was fun, and I forgot to mention last week, I did ask the question on the Instagram if anybody had any pregame rituals and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about that because there was a few that I saw on the ESPN or NFL on ESPN about some players in the league and some of their pregame rituals. I thought it was kind of cool. So there's 5 of them. The first one being with Josh Allen. He throws up before every game. And I've heard of people doing that before, throwing up because they get so nervous. Harrison Smith for the Vikings takes a shot of hot sauce. It's right up my alley. I would be down with that. This one is just kind of weird. This next one, Justin Tucker might be one of the greatest kickers of all time. For the Ravens, he says he lays out his uniform in the shape of a person before every game. It's kind of weird to me, but to each his own. You got to do what you got to do. Next one is Jason Kelsey has one. He listens to Christmas music. So, in December, they do play games in December, so it's understandable. And maybe the last week in November, just after Thanksgiving. Totally get that. But doing that before, during that, August, September, not August, but September, October, to each his own, though. To each his own. Last one I saw on here on NFL on ESPN was George Kittle reads a new letter from his dad. I thought that was pretty cool, that his dad writes him a letter before every game. That's pretty freaking awesome. And, not everybody out there, has a dad, to be there for him or to do stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. And I had the pregame rituals that you guys had mentioned. I probably should have had that ready, but of course I did not. But I will pull that sucker up here. Let's see. Oh, another thing is, we're going to find her. Let's see. I probably should have just hit pause, but that's all right. All right, so I was able to finally find it. First one was from Craft Beer Republic. They said just beer was their pregame ritual. Brewski Bonds, who was on the show last week, his was a pregame chug. Oh, happy birthday, actually, Brewski. He's out in, I think, Orlando right now. But his is a pregame chug with his jersey on game day. Chew says, get laundry and all house chores done before Sunday football. Let's see. We have one that says never bet the unders, and that was Navi. And then the last one I had was Bruins t-shirt, Pats jersey, Red Sox hat, and Celtics wristband from the Drinking Lawyer. So I'm assuming he's from Boston. What's going on? That one made me laugh. I was like, it's kind of cool. Just seeing all the different things that people are into. But I'm going to finish off this beer because I got another one coming in. That's good stuff. Oh yeah, I wanted to do a quick MLB update before I drink a brewski too. Braves clinched the division. Dodgers actually just clinched the division last night. So those two are locked up. I think we're just kind of battling to see who's going to get the home field advantage throughout the playoffs if one of them makes the World Series. We'll do a quick wild card update. In the National League, Philly's still leading, up by 4 games. So right now, that if they were to play, it would be the Philly and the Cubs would be playing each other in Philly. So they'd have the 3-game series there. Then it's a battle. Honestly, the last 3 spots between Arizona, Cincinnati, and Miami. Arizona and Cincinnati are tied. Miami is down a half a game. And then the American League, we got, it's a little close. It's actually pretty close. We have Tampa Bay, who's in the top spot. They pretty much all but locked that up. The top wild card spot. But Texas is Texas and Toronto are only a half a game difference with one another, because it looks like Toronto has one more in the loss column. And then Seattle only half a game out of that 3rd spot. Next team is the Yankees, so it's between those 4 teams. So it feels like really the National League and the American League, there's from seeds, there's the last 2 spots that are open are both really close. So we'll see how that plays out. Not too sure how it's going to go. But I'm excited because, we obviously have baseball coming into an end, the regular season, and then who doesn't love playoff baseball? It's easily one of my favorites. That and, playoff hockey are awesome. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Max Scherzer's out. Never been a Max Scherzer guy, but you never really want to see a guy get hurt. But yeah, Texas, they kind of keep on churning through though, even though, Scherzer's gone, but like I said, we'll see how it all plays out. Next beer I have is, the can, I actually just posted this on Instagram the other day. It's the one that Jizzy did the can artwork for Brewery X. It's Heroes in a Full Pint Tumble Time. It's a West Coast IPA. It's their 4th anniversary can, coming in at 7%. I just love it. I love the can artwork. The shirts are cool too. So if you have a chance to go down there and get a 4-pack, definitely do that. Let me crack this one open here. There we go. Little head on that one because I let it sit out for a little bit. But this one, I've been drinking this one all week. I really actually love it. I love a good the West Coast, but I'll explain why in a moment. And I'm not just being a homer because my brother designed the can. The actual beer needs to be good too. So, but let's go in here for a drink. Still a lot of foam in that. Kind of did a hard pour. Yeah, we'll let that simmer down there for a sec. All right, looks like we're good. Oh, that's good. I love this one because it's, it being West Coast, so you get that piney, you get those piney notes to it. But you also get almost like a brute kind of finish, like a really crisp, almost champagne-y kind of finish. So it's, has a little dryness to it. And I really love that. When they can kind of incorporate that dry finish to it, I don't know what it is. I don't know why I love it so much, but maybe that's why I like mimosas, because you get that champagne dry finish, but it is really good. Crisp, clean, crushable. Big fat 10 for me. I actually really like this one. And I'm going to be featuring this can on a new post I'm going to do each week during college football season. It's going to be called Mike's Picks of the Week. It's going to highlight one beer and then also one college football game that I'm going to be betting on. Well, not be betting on, but it's one that I would bet on. But don't forget to drink and gamble responsibly. I'm just going to put that out there. So I'm going to do that once a week. Really excited about it because, I've been kind of working on this little thing, on the laptop for it. So it should be pretty fun. And I want to keep I want to try to post more. I know there's some weeks I don't post as, not a lot. And then there's some weeks I post more. So kind of just want to get more in the habit, doing all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so let's jump into some college football because I'm really excited because next week I'm going to be at the Dancing Bears over in Arizona, over at Jammin's. So he'll be on the show next week with me. Me, Veto, and Nav are all going down there, so should be a blast. And I get to gamble all weekend. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be gambling, eating, drinking, the works. But yeah, college football. One thing I want to say too before we get into some of the games. Congrats to Lee Corso. He did his 400th headgear yesterday. That was pretty awesome. I mean, they touched on it a lot on College Game Day yesterday. How Corso's been in everybody's living room for how long, and it was one of my favorites. I mean, I grew up watching Game Day, and then Jizzy and I actually had a tradition when we were kids. The first weekend of college football, when we were little, we would go to Carl's Jr. and we would get breakfast burgers. And this is whenever the breakfast burger started for Carl's Jr. And I'm pretty sure it's still around. But we would go and then we would come back and we'd watch College Game Day. And it was just something as small and like little as that, but it was fun. It was like something that we did together as brothers. So it was just seeing like everything that seeing everything about Corso yesterday and the show being really about him. That made me pretty happy, and it just made me think of spending time like that with my brother when we were kids. Next I want to talk about was Colorado. Obviously they went into a barn burner yesterday with Colorado State. I'm not going to say I'm fully on board with the hype train for Colorado. I do think Dion Prime has done a phenomenal job. He's done a really good job of turning the program around so far. I also think they still have a ways to go. I feel like after the TCU win and after Nebraska, and I just want to say, like I said, I think he's doing a great job, but I mean, I feel like they got exploited quite a bit yesterday. I think that their defense is okay. I mean, maybe even okay is not the right word to use. I would say they're lacking. Maybe I'll say that. I feel like the defense is lacking. I feel like the offensive line is lacking. I feel like they have some great skill players. I think Shedeur Thompson is a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. But I mean, he got really tested yesterday by a Colorado State team. So I honestly, they have a couple tough games coming up. They have Oregon next week, which one of the games I'm going to talk about. And then they have SC the week after. I feel like if SC plays well, and if their defense plays well, they shouldn't have any issue beating them. But that's it's a couple weeks away. We'll see how everything goes. But I just wanted to say, for Colorado, I do think they're doing a good job. But I'm also not going to be like some of the media outlets that I've seen, like where they've talked about Colorado. Like there was one guy specifically, and I actually really liked his show, but I'm not going to say what show it is. But he was just like, "Oh, what happens if Colorado beats Oregon and USC?" And I was just like, "Dude, like, what are you doing?" And then I saw even them talking about it on another show for another guy I really value his opinion. Actually, it was a few shows this week. One of them was on ESPN. The other two were just on YouTube. But I'm like, man, like you're setting this hype train in motion, and I get it. People need content; they need stuff to talk about. But man, you're putting all that pressure on on these kids. I just feel like they were overhyped, and they're still 3-0. Granted, yeah, they're still 3-0, but I don't see them like a lot of the other people in the media, like in the sports media, see them. I think they're good. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're fantastic. I think they are a good football team, but that's lacking on the offensive line, lacking on the defensive line. Travis Hunter got hurt after a late hit. Hopefully he's okay. Like I said, you never want to see a kid get hurt like that. And he's, obviously uber talented. So hopefully he gets back and hopefully he's all right. I haven't seen anything on it yet. So other than that he was taken to the hospital. So like I said, hopefully he's all right. But next week we got some great games. I'm really excited. I think there's 7 games where their teams are that are playing each other. They're in the top 25. Well, except for FSU and Clemson, but I mean, there's obviously some really good games. But FSU's going to Clemson, and spread the Clemson's giving 2.5. I thought that line was really low. I mean, I know Florida State had a tough one yesterday, but with Boston College, but that was an emotionally kind of driven game. So I wouldn't, take too much stock in the 2-point win by Florida State. But I still think Florida State, I mean, I don't believe in Clemson right now. Maybe that'll change. But I mean, until I've seen more and them doing it against a solid team, but we'll see. Ohio State and Notre Dame. This is a game I'm really excited about. Ohio State is favored by 3. I have a feeling this line is going to move. I don't know. If Ohio State can run the ball and run the ball effectively, they can beat Notre Dame. We'll see how, the quarterback does, but I also think that, I can see this game going both ways. If somebody made an argument for Notre Dame, like, all right, yeah, I can see that. I can see Notre Dame winning. I like Sam Hartman. I like Estime. He's a freaking badass running back. I feel like they both have weapons. But I feel it's a tough one, and it's a 3-point spread. Notre Dame's getting 3, and they're at home. If I had to take that game, I would probably take Notre Dame in the 3 points, especially being at home. If it was over at Ohio State, then I'd probably take Ohio State in the 3 if they were getting it. Ole Miss and Alabama. Alabama had a rough one yesterday against South Florida. I've been saying it for weeks. I don't know if I've said it on the show, but I mean, when I was talking to Gunner and I've talked to, all my buddies about it, I just don't think Alabama's that good. I feel like they have talent, but they don't have a quarterback. Buckner, he's not good. Clearly wasn't good in Notre Dame. Milroe, I don't know. They need one of them to step up, or Ty Simpson or whoever, but I just don't see it. And Alabama's giving 6.5 points to Ole Miss. I mean, I know Ole Miss defense sucks, but if Ole Miss can score touchdowns, I don't know how Alabama can keep up, because I just don't see it. I mean, I would take the 6 points in Ole Miss, 6.5, if I had to choose. It's in Tuscaloosa. Maybe that's why they're favored, but they still don't have a quarterback. And South Florida doesn't have an offense like Ole Miss. I mean, they might have a better defense than Ole Miss, but I don't think they have the offense. And I don't think Alabama's equipped enough to have a shootout. So we'll see. I mean, unless Jackson Dart goes out there, starts throwing pick sixes all around the yard, we'll see. Next one. Ole Miss. No, sorry, not Ole Miss. UCLA and Utah. I'm really liking UCLA right now. I know they haven't really played anybody yet, but still, they're a quiet 3-0. They're a quiet 3-0. They're just going out there. They're getting their job done. And Utah, so it's over in Utah. It's over in Salt Lake. Utah's favored by 5 points. Seems like a tight spread. Utah, they've struggled. We'll just come out and say that. I know UCLA tends to struggle on the road during Pac-12 play. But I'm going to take the Bruins. I think the Bruins can win that game. Utah's going to go in there and try to push people around, but I mean, their defense hasn't looked great. I mean, I take that back. Their defenses look pretty good. But it hasn't been like a typical Utah kind of team. But I feel like UCLA can definitely has a puncher's chance. So I would take the 5 points. I think Utah could win by a field goal. We'll see. Colorado and Oregon. This game, man. Okay, so we'll just start it off by the spread. Oregon's favored by 19.5. I think Colorado has the with Weaver, and if Travis Hunter comes back, I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. But with Weaver and then the other kid, and then they have that Edwards, their running back. I don't know. I mean, I think it could be closer. Like, I feel like Colorado, if they get into a track meet, might be able to keep up with Oregon. Bo Nix, I'm still not entirely sold on. I know some people love him, but I don't know. He hasn't done enough for me. Even going back to his Oregon days, he has not done enough for me to think like, oh yeah, this guy's fucking legit. I think he's just okay. They don't have an over/under yet on this game. I'm gonna check Vegas Insider and see what we got. All right, Vegas Insider, CFB odds, and I'm looking it up while we're here. Here we go. Do we have an over/under? Why is it giving me... Oh, we need week 4 here, buddy. What are you doing? There it is. All right. Week 4. Oh, and I wanted to mention, too, about Colorado. I didn't check the final stat line, but I saw that... Colorado, I think I had like 26 yards rushing with like 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So, like, if you make them one-dimensional, it really, really does not look good. And it looks like there is no over-under currently for the Colorado game. But when I was looking at it earlier on DraftKings, it said 19.5 points. I'm going to say the over is probably somewhere around 69.5 probably. Maybe 70. We'll see if that line moves. Either way, if it's 69.5, 68.5, 70, I'm probably pounding the over in that game. I just feel like I said, I feel like Colorado's offensive line is lacking. Defensive line is lacking. Oregon doesn't have a great defense, so Colorado should be able to score some points. But it's in Autzen. It's a tough road test. It's never easy to go to Eugene and play in Autzen Stadium. We shall see. I still think Oregon wins that game. Another team I'm not really exactly sold on is Oregon State and Wazoo. Love Oregon State's defense. Don't really care for DJ. Honestly, thought he was going to be better. He had one big throw. Honestly, other than that, then he had that throwback kind of play earlier to that offensive lineman to score a touchdown. Technically, it was a lateral, so there was no penalty. But yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it with Oregon State. I feel like they have some great players. I just don't think DJ is the guy. I could be wrong. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But Wazoo is at home, and they're getting 2 points. I feel like it could be a really close game. I would take Wazoo. Iowa and Penn State. I like Aller for Penn State. I don't think he's quite ready yet for to put in that upper echelon of college football quarterbacks right now. But he's a young kid, so as long as he continues to grow and you see progression each week, they should be all right. Iowa, love Kirk Ferentz, great coach. We'll see though. I would stay away from that game. I wouldn't trust Penn State to cover that points. I know Iowa usually has a pretty solid defense under Kirk. So if I had to choose, I'd probably take Iowa, but I wouldn't want to bet on that game. But all right, that's all I got this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the intro. Went a little long there, but hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Latreace. Also, there is going to be a bonus, well, not a bonus beer review, but a little bonus thing at the end, because Lucy from Louies Liquor did have her own beer release with King's Brewing. She will go ahead and describe that. It's Lucy's Pina Lollipop Frose. So definitely I'm gonna have her on the show sometime soon, and I'm gonna review it then, because I didn't want to drink it that I figured would be better if I had it on the show with her. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview, and stay tuned for Lucy's thing at the end of that, and then also the outro. All right, guys, we're back in the tap room. I am your host, Mike, and I have a very special guest on today. Her name is Latreace Harris, also known as the Beery Godmother on Instagram. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Good.
Glad we got to do this. I
Yes,
know I know we've both been a little busy.
we have. And thank you for your patience. I know we're all just ripping and running these days, but it's always good to sit down. So,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and we get to talk about some beer. So,
yes, absolutely. My favorite thing.
oh yeah, that's right. And so we should we crack a beer open, and then we'll get into your
Let's
craft
do
beer
it.
journey and all that stuff. What are you drinking today?
So I am drinking a saison from Burial Brewing Company
Okay.
out of Asheville, North Carolina, but they have a couple of locations now. Raleigh, Charlotte. But it's Burial just really can't miss in my mind. They don't ever really produce anything that's bad. So, decided to pull this out of my beer fridge. I'm a lover of all things saison. Whenever I can get a good one, I will definitely have it. So that's what I'm having today. What about you?
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm having I've actually had it on the show before, but it's just one of my favorites lately. Um, because I love stouts, but usually not this time of year because it's kind
Uh
of
huh.
warm. But
Yeah.
this one, it's a lime and coconut, like a golden milk
Ooh.
stout, and it's
Yes.
pretty good.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and this one's out of Noble in Anaheim, which is right by Disneyland and stuff like that.
Okay.
But it's got a really like pretty color to it, so
Oh,
it's
fantastic.
oh yeah, it's got a nice head. So cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. Hmm.
Ah, oh man. So I do want to get into like how did you get into craft beer? Because I know just
Yeah.
a couple of things about you. Like obviously you're a Cicerone, and obviously you're a beer education consultant. But how did you get into to craft beer initially?
Oh wow. So my craft beer journey, I think, started really out of curiosity. The same way a lot of folks, make that crossover from what they were drinking before to when they actually start drinking craft beer. So
Yeah.
a lot of mine was really affiliated with sports. So I'm a big football fan. Always been a big football watcher. And at football games or when you're watching games, at people's houses and whatnot, beer is the choice, right? Most of the time,
Yep.
people don't have liquor. I mean, they do sometimes, but a lot of times they don't. And so,
Yeah.
my story, this was probably like 2004, 2005. And I was just the person that, would drink an occasional Corona or, a Heineken, something like that. But after just hanging out with a lot of my guy friends who were telling me, like, you can't come here to our houses and drink, like vodka at noon, type
Yeah.
thing. Like, I mean, you can, not
Yeah.
judging anybody, but, they were like, we don't have all that. We
Yeah.
have enough beer, right? And so when I would say I don't like blank, whatever beer they had, they would be like, well, why don't, you should really start to like, figure out what you like. So I would start to go to sports bars sometimes and just see what they had, and it started from there of just starting to, increase your palate and increase what you're drinking. And, everybody starts out with like your gateway beers. Like mine was
Yep.
definitely Blue Moon and
Okay.
Stella. Those were the two that I was like, I am high rolling now.
Yeah.
It's time. Right. And so it really went from there and started to just explode once I started realizing how many craft breweries were popping up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it just became something, me and my friends would go and, you just were starting to explore and explore and explore more. And I think for me, it just took off from there. I was the person who wanted to know more than just like, you know, a type of beer or like, oh, be able to call out beers. It was like, I wanted to know more about why they
Of
tasted the
course.
way they tasted and the brewing process. So, it kind of fell into it, but I never thought I would be where I am with it. I think it just
Hmm.
naturally kind of evolves.
That's awesome
Yeah,
because yeah, like you said, we all kind of find our gateway kind of thing, and
we
like
do.
and your buddies are right too because I mean you could definitely drink like vodka or like
Of
cranberry
course you
juice or
can.
stuff like
Yeah,
that,
right,
but I
right.
mean you might not last a whole day.
Yes, yes, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
but it's that's one thing I love about craft beer because I mean like you find like all the different places everywhere. Like that's why even now if I take trips, I usually plan my
Hmm.
trips around breweries
Oh
now.
yeah, me too. It's all around breweries and donuts for me. I'm like a big donut
Oh,
fan.
okay.
Like so when I go to places, I'm looking for the best breweries and the best donuts that I can find. Like where, and thankfully, so many places have breweries that are popping up. I mean, even the smallest little tiny town like has a brewery somewhere close.
Oh, of course.
get your share. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, and who doesn't love a good donut?
Right, exactly. I mean, sometimes I pair them. You never know. I'm going to throw that milk stout, or that golden stout that you're drinking would be perfect
Oh
for a
yeah.
donut pairing. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey and one that just keeps evolving. That's the best part, about beer. With your own changing taste and what it just kind of keeps moving.
100%. That's awesome. And so you say so you're living in Atlanta now. Were you always in Atlanta, or did you move there, or where did you
So
grow
I
up?
moved to Atlanta for college. I'm originally from Maryland, right outside of DC, in
Okay.
a city called Gaithersburg, Maryland. And so that's where I was, born and raised, grew up until college. Came to Atlanta for college, and Atlanta has a tendency to just kind of take people hostage, right? Like once you get here,
Yeah.
it's like you kind of just fall in love with the city, lots of different opportunities. And so over time, I have stayed here, jobs have kept me here, and yeah, so Atlanta is I guess the new home, even though
Okay.
I always rep Maryland, but
Yeah.
you never forget your hometown. But Maryland is, I mean, excuse me, Atlanta's where I've been.
That's awesome. And so
Yeah.
when you got into like obviously being a cicerone and like the beer education, like how did obviously like you mentioned earlier how you wanted to like learn about different beers or trying different beers or
Hmm.
finding your what your style, like the style you like to drink.
Right.
But what drove you yeah, let's talk about what drove you, and then I
Yeah.
want to get into after that like what it consists of. So if like say if a listener or someone's listening, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what, that sounds awesome or sounds interesting. I want to get
Yeah.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I think, I went kind of from, as I was talking about, just kind of somebody who really, really liked beer to someone who felt like I was spending more and more of my weekends at like breweries,
Hmm.
festivals, going to beer tastings, all of that stuff. I think probably around like 2018, 2019, I started toying with the idea of what can I do in the beer space, right? That takes what I'm learning or my interest to like a different level.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I'm kind of like an education type person by like, I guess it's in my blood. I have a lot of teachers in my family. I'm not a teacher by profession, but I was a math and science tutor for like
Okay.
15 years as like a side hustle. So it's just teaching people things and seeing like the moment that somebody gets it, right? Like the moment that they absorb some information that
Yeah.
they never absorbed before is just really gratifying to
Hmm.
me. So I was like, my favorite part of beer is the like nitty gritty, geeky, nerdy stuff, but it's not for me about talking about it such that it feels pretentious, right? It's really
Hmm.
about taking that information and breaking it down, right? Distilling it a little further so that everybody can have that nugget, right? Not just like the beer bros or like the, like
Yeah.
very, very highbrow, like beer connoisseurs, if you will, right? That
Yeah.
everybody can have it. So um, during COVID, everybody's just kind of thinking like, what do I want to do? What do I
Yeah.
want to do? And I actually started a beer club with some friends of mine who, we were all, of course, all across the country, and we would sit down during COVID when, of course, everybody was on Zoom.
Yeah.
Everybody jumping on Zoom happy hours
Yeah.
into
Oh,
effect, right?
definitely.
So we would get on, and every month we would send each other beer from different parts of the country. Like one of them lives in Delaware, one in Chicago, and two in New York. And we would just send each other beer and sit around and like talk about this beer. And in
That's
doing
awesome.
that, I was like, they would ask me questions a lot of the times, and I was like, I'm the one who knows this information, right? It's kind of weird where
Hmm.
you're like talking to your friends, and you're like, oh, people asking you questions, and I would just like know it. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, what about if maybe my space in beer is education, right? And then also just in talking to taproom staff, one of the biggest, things that, I would hear from people brewery owners, taproom staff was, I wish I could get my staff more trained, or I wish
Hmm.
I could have some more, we do initial trainings, but we can't find the time to train them. Or brewers would say, I feel like I don't connect necessarily with my staff the way that I would like to. I'm talking to them and
Yeah.
it's like over their head, and they're like, it's just all of those pieces. And so I was like, well, I think the thing I'm most passionate about is the beer education part of this. And so I said, well, I think I'm going to start the Beery Godmother, as a way to like provide training resources for brewery, bar, restaurant staff, and be able to give them that piece of training that they need, distill it down, offer some different options. And, it's not meant to be a super, advanced Cicerone level training. It's literally meant to be, something that will make sure that the beer that the brewer has worked so hard to make gets conveyed to the public the way that it needs to. And that, beer tenders feel confident in what they're doing when they're encountering customers.
I love that because when you go to a brewery, like there's so many times when you go in there and they like, oh, like what do you recommend? And they're like, yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So I love that because when you're able to instill that kind of, or have them, or instill that kind of knowledge into them. And like, I love what you said though, too, about how it's not, being like, we're able to put it like in layman's terms. You can talk to somebody and understand it, because I totally get when you kind of explain something to someone or talking to someone that that you know a lot about, when you see that, things are clicking, like it's finally starting to come through. It is super gratifying.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that is beer can be like, craft beer has grown so much over the past, I guess you'd say probably like 10 years, we'll say.
For sure.
And on one hand, it's fantastic, right? Because there's all these new options and, you have all of this exposure. But on the other hand, it can be very intimidating for people who don't necessarily they're not following beer all the time. They're not drinking beer all the time. Maybe they're like curious and want to try some things, but they're so intimidated when they see that menu of 25 items, or, sometimes you go to, brew pubs and stuff and it's like 50 beers and they're like, I have no idea where to start. And, like I said, that beer tender is that first point of contact with the customer to, help them feel a little bit more comfortable about the beer that they are maybe curious about. So, I think that's the piece that really drew me. And the Cicerone part of it. So I am actually a certified beer server, the first level of Cicerone, and I have passed my tasting exam for the certified Cicerone, which is level 2. And so I'm about to take the written exam. So the certified Cicerone is 2 parts. And really, when people ask me to describe the Cicerone, it's more of, to me, the baseline knowledge regarding, brewing process, history of beer, styles, and pairing of beers. That, you should know if you work, very, very closely with beer. Now, I'm not saying that, you have to be a certified Cicerone in order to be able to, work in a brewery or whatnot. But I know a lot of breweries more and more are starting to, give incentives for people who will do at least a certified beer server exam. It's the entry level exam. Just because it's really good beer knowledge. It's like not a little bit more elevated than Beer 101, right? But it's just, like I said, it's a way of quantifying what you know. And for me, because my 9 to 5 is not in the beer industry, right? It was very important to me to have something that was quantifiable and that, was like, it's like getting a certification in anything else, right?
Of course.
This is the thing that is like, bona fide, and what ensures that I'm able to teach what is being, done in breweries, with a certain level of competence. So, that's kind of where that is.
That's awesome. I mean, I love how, like, because when you can tell when someone's like genuinely passionate about something. So it makes my heart happy every time I see someone like that. So I mean, that's, congratulations to you, and congratulations on passing your the first part of it. So I know you have the second part. But I love like hearing about beer education, or like even like the beer history. Like I had, was it Beers with Bierkowski on a
Yes. Like, oh my gosh. Rachel is awesome, and she is like a kindred spirit of mine. Me and her talk all the time. Because I love the beer history that she does. And I've done a couple of segments in my Beer Fact Fridays that I do on Fridays on beer history. But she just goes into full depth, right? Like I've
Yeah.
talked a little bit about how styles have evolved over time, from a particular region of the world or
Yeah.
whatever. But her deep dives are fantastic. So, but it breaks it down into something that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to see all that sort of stuff and like to hear like all these
Hmm.
different things because then it's just a factoid. And I always call myself like a vessel of useless knowledge. So I'm always just trying to like absorb
Right.
absorb different
Right.
things from different places. So when I
Yeah.
see that sort of stuff, it just like, like I said, it makes me like, oh, that's cool because I'm always wanting to like I can only quote so many movies.
Yeah,
But
right.
you know.
Right. So like you might as well break out your beer knowledge as a backup.
Exactly, yeah. So if I can learn something about that, that's great. And plus, like my brother being in the craft beer industry as well, we're able to kind of do
Cool.
like but he does like can artwork and he does like distribution
Very
stuff. So like
cool.
that.
Yeah.
What breweries do you work with out there, or what's the craft beer scene out like in
Yeah.
Atlanta?
So I have worked with a couple of breweries here in Atlanta so far. So Beery Godmother, I started it in March of 2022. So still
Okay.
relatively, baby in the company,
Mm-hmm.
starting space. But, I feel like even in just like a year and a half, things have really, really flourished well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked with Firemaker Brewing here, Monday Night Brewing here, which has locations in Nashville, Birmingham, Charlotte,
Okay.
and then two here in Atlanta. I have worked with Biggerstaff Brewing here, also another brewery in Atlanta, and then a couple of breweries in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I kind of go back and forth. My parents retired there. So,
Okay, that's cool.
yeah, I go back and forth kind of between here and in Charlotte, and have had a chance to start to build some relationships with folks there in Charlotte as well. So I don't know if anybody. Well, I'm sure some of the listeners know about Salud
Yeah.
Cerveceria in Charlotte. There, I've worked with them.
Oh,
I
awesome.
mean, just getting a chance to really work with any brewery that's kind of like, hey, can you come in and help our staff with X, Y, or Z, right? So, everything from like the full gamut of what I would ordinarily teach, like I said, a styles history, keeping and serving beer, making sure that they're serving it correctly, glassware, etc. To prep for the certified beer server exam. Actually, I've done as
Wow.
well. So it just really depends. But I think the beer scene in Atlanta, I've watched it evolve from, one really what we would call like big commercial brewery, which is Sweetwater Brewing. I think everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows, Sweetwater out of Georgia, out of Atlanta,
Yeah.
to just a space. I think at last check, it's like 90 something breweries in the state. I mean, maybe even more than that.
Wow.
It has grown so much. And I think the biggest piece for me about breweries in Atlanta and the beer scene in Atlanta is the diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much diversity in culture. You have diversity in, LGBTQIA populations. You have,
Mm-hmm.
there's a fiber. It's not monolithic. It doesn't
Yeah.
just look like one type of person, right? It's
Yeah.
very, very much so. One of those things that, everyone in Atlanta is kind of striving to make sure that there's inclusivity and that people feel comfortable in the tap room spaces. And I mean, there's always room for improvement, right?
No,
But,
of course.
I think there is an effort there. So, I mean, I would say it's growing. And also, Atlanta, it's kind of like that outcast, the famous
Oh
outcast
yeah.
quote, the South has something to say. I
Mm-hmm.
think Atlanta is really trying to show that we're not a fly by night beer location.
Mm-hmm.
You have folks that are really leaning into doing beer, doing things that are innovative, but also doing them the right way. You have people flexing their creativity. You have a return, of course, to like classic styles, which I think is like a trend throughout the whole country.
Oh, for sure, right
You know
now.
what I mean? Like, so it's Atlanta, like I said, is like I always say it's kind of like not a baby in the industry, but a teenager, right? And
Hmm.
it's
Okay.
kind of a teenager where you're like, okay, we know that like super popular parts of the country, the California,
Hmm.
Oregon, New York City, like the New York period, upstate, the upper eastern seaboard, right? New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, all these
Hmm.
places are very, and then the Midwest has their kind of stronghold on beer too.
Oh, definitely.
Atlanta is talking in the South. I mean, I think we're so close in proximity to Asheville, North Carolina, which is often thought about as like the capital of the South, beer capital of the South. But
Oh, wow.
I would say we're definitely creeping in there and trying to make some noise.
That's awesome. I mean, I've only ever, I mean, I've never, well, I've been to Atlanta. I'm a huge Braves fan, but we can talk about that later. Um,
Yeah.
um, but I mean, I've been to North Carolina quite a few times, but I've
Hmm.
only ever, oh, sorry, I actually muted my mic there.
Hmm.
I've only never flown through Atlanta, but I've been to like Fayetteville, North Carolina, I've been to
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Raleigh and like Durham and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that. Uh, and I remember like the first time I went to like I think it was like Beef O'Brady's, I think it was called out there or something like that. And
Uh-huh.
they had a bunch of craft beer on tap. I
Hmm.
was like, oh, this is interesting because I mean I
Yeah.
had like the only introduction I had into craft beer back then was like Arrogant Bastard or like
Oh
Double like
yeah. Oh yeah.
I appreciate those beers now, but when I
Of
first
course.
started drinking them, I was like, what is this?
Well,
Like
that's
this
well,
it
that's
was
the
so
thing. You have
tough,
no
yeah.
idea. Like, I will never forget the first time I had a Victory Golden Monkey,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, I don't even know what to think of this. Like, like, is this? I don't know. It tastes so boozy. Like, but I kind of
Yeah.
like it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's funny how you evolve, from that and have an
Oh.
appreciation like at different points for different beers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can like growing up, like I was always like I think when I first really got into like craft beers, it was mostly like yeah, like West Coast. I mean,
Of
but like you
course.
were saying before, how there's like trends
Of
like
course.
crazy. Like there's stuff trending up, there's stuff trending down, and like
Yep.
things are becoming popular again. Like
Yep.
obviously like you're seeing a lot of like pilsners, lagers, stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Yep.
Even I feel like West Coast kind of
They
took the
are.
back. Yeah, they're
They're
coming
back.
back too. They took
Hmm.
the back seat to I think Hazy's. I
They
think
totally did
everything
for a
took the
long
back seat.
time.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean it's like once you like, I feel like all the when it's you make something really well, it finds its way through.
Hmm.
Yeah.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that's despite all of the trends, right? Because like we said,
Mm-hmm.
there definitely are trends. I appreciate a well-made style, right? And
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
that that's one of the pieces of beer education I think that's so important
Yeah.
is having people to understand like what qualifies a well-made style. Like what is that style, right? What
Mm-hmm.
should it have? What shouldn't it have? And then you're able to kind of assess, of course, based on your own taste too. Everybody is not going to. There are classic styles that some people will be like, I hate this, like
Yeah.
and that's fine. I think we all have like our things, but you have to, like you said, know when you're having like and recognize when you're having a really well made beer. That
Mm-hmm.
you know the style and what the style should taste like. And it just makes the experience that much better. I think brewers appreciate it, breweries appreciate it, and then
Mm-hmm.
you as the consumer appreciates it too.
Oh, definitely. And like, because it doesn't like the one thing that like I don't know if it like irks me, but it like I always like it makes me feel like when it comes to Untapped, it's like people are like,
Oh
oh,
God, so polarizing. Yeah,
I know, and they'll be like, it'll be like like a say like a just a regular pills or like a Czech pilsner or
yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so
rice
rice lager or
lagers,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
something like that, and then
Mhm.
you'll get them like, oh, they give it like 1 star, like, oh, it's not really my style. I don't really usually like this sort of stuff. It's
And
like,
I'm like, well, don't rate it then.
yeah,
That's the thing. It's so funny. Like I used to be, I will admit, like before I started, being a godmother and I was very much like paying attention to Untapped, right? It would allow
mm,
me to decide like, what breweries I'm going to, like, I was that
yeah,
person, admittedly. But over time, I use it more so just to let me know like what beer someplace has. Some places
yeah,
just opt to use it as a menu,
oh, for
generator
sure,
or whatever. But to your point, I mean, I think that everybody has their own opinion. It's fine. But
of
like you said,
course, yeah,
I have seen some beers that are like legendary beers get like a
mm-hmm,
1. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh no, like this is,
yeah,
that beer it's just, maybe it just wasn't what you liked, and to your point,
yeah,
you get a lot of that. It's like, this is not my style, or like, this tasted like water. And I'm like, well, it's
mm,
the style itself is kind of supposed to be neutral,
yeah.
or whatever, so, yeah, it's kind of funny seeing that trend itself.
Oh yeah, and I just feel like I see that quite a bit. I'm like, oh man, but it was like, I mean, I loved it. And like you said, everybody, of course, has their opinion, but I just
Uh-huh.
feel like if it's not something you're really into, maybe, you know,
Right, maybe give it the
yeah,
benefit of the doubt a little bit. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
agreed.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I do love being able to like see like what's out on there,
Hmm.
especially like going to different breweries or trying to find different ones, because then even like obviously like Instagram's such a great platform. I feel like for
Yes.
beer, I mean, I feel like even like ones like TikTok or Twitter, like it's not as I feel like as informative as say like an Instagram is,
Yeah. Yeah.
when it comes to finding new things, because I
Yeah.
mean you can post photos or you can post this or whatever, but you can also have, your website link on the, in
Yeah.
on Instagram, and you can see like if you go to a brewery, like, oh, they're having a smash burgers here on Friday, or
Yes.
they're having
Yes.
this or that.
Right. Hmm.
And plus that's all want to be able to get everybody through the door, and
Yes.
find the right beer, and especially, whether it's like there's all these things that kind of factor into it. It's, obviously the beer's got to be good,
Yes.
but even now the counter work has to be amazing
Oh man,
too.
it has to be eye catching, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has to
Hmm.
pop. I mean, it has to, because I mean, there's so many. There's a liquor store that I talk about all the time on the show,
Hmm.
Louie's Liquor. It's probably about 20 minutes away,
Okay.
but you go in there and they have like I don't know how many different ones to choose from, because it's all
Yeah.
single cans,
Hmm.
and you're like, uh, so unless it like really like
Yeah.
pops, like unless it's something like from like Pure Brewing, like I mean, I don't know if you've
Oh,
had theirs, yeah,
I love Pure. Oh my gosh, Pure. Yeah, we'll talk about Pure in a second. But
oh,
yeah,
oh yeah.
their
But
favorite.
every
Favorite.
time though, like if I see theirs, if they have a new can, I'm automatically gonna get theirs, just
Automatically, yes.
because, yeah, because that trust factor that you
Yes.
have
Yes,
with
very
them,
much so.
because they
Yeah.
just put out just great beer. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different ones to choose from. It's
Yeah.
tough to narrow things, and you're like, I don't know, and then but then you
Exactly.
sometimes you take a chance and it ends up being great.
Exactly. Well, that's so funny that you say that. That it's kind
Yeah.
of like you said, like the trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think all consumers, it's like you said, you see this. Sometimes you're drawn in by the can.
Yep.
Sometimes there's things you're like, ooh, the description sounds cool, and so it's
Yep.
neat seeing how breweries that like aren't quite at that point of trust, quote, like
Yep.
some breweries sight unseen. I mean, I know, I think we all, Pure is a great example.
Yeah.
The folks over at Pure, and a good friend of mine is Chris Laguzman,
Oh
who is
yeah.
at, Miramar, and does all their beer education for Pure.
Yep.
He actually, it's funny that it was so funny, before I picked the Saison that I'm drinking, I actually have a can of Pure's more recent West Coast that Chris sent me, and I
Okay.
almost was going to drink it. We would have been, hanging very similar
Oh, that's
there.
awesome.
But yeah, I mean, like Pure is one of those ones that, whenever I'm out on the West Coast, if I see it, I'm getting it. I don't even need to know what it tastes like. All I need to know is
Mm-hmm.
the style, and that's it. Like I'm going for it. I mean, I think here on the East Coast or Southeast, I mean, Burial Brewing is similar.
Mm-hmm.
Halfway Crooks, is a brewery that opened in Atlanta in 2020 and has been making a lot of waves here. Monday Night Brewing again. It's the places that I grab it. I don't even need to know,
Awesome.
what it is. But to your point, that goes to like the marketing, how important can art, but also descriptors.
Oh,
That's
for
another
sure.
big piece that I'm always kind of preaching to my brewery clients is, the way you describe your beer is key, right?
Yep.
And of course you can keep it consistent with like your brand and the different things that every brewery kind of has a brand, and things that
Oh
they
yeah.
do. But, we got to go a little bit further than just like saying, it's a, Czech Pilsner, or it's a German style lager. What does it taste like? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That doesn't people, if you're not super deeply into beer, you don't know what that is. And I mean, even drinking all the beer that I drink, and probably you too. I mean, if you put
Yeah.
side by side a Pilsner and a German style lager next to one another, are we going to be able to pick them out? If they're similar in color and
Oh
they're,
yeah, they're gonna be
you
close for
know,
sure.
so it's all about descriptors and vocabulary, and getting people familiar with what something's going to taste like, and trying to relate it in some way to like what they are familiar with, you know?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, because remember like one of the first times I went, there was a brewery way down. I think they got bought out years ago, but
Uh-huh.
It was St. Archer down in San Diego.
Okay.
And it was, I remember the first time I went in there with my brother, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like back when they were still like independent and all that stuff. We're
Mm-hmm.
still,
Yeah.
the lady asked me, she's like, "Oh, what do you drink?" I was like, I want to say back then it was like Pyramid or like stuff like that,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
Hefeweizen. So I didn't really, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but then I remember trying a Mosaic for the first time, and I was like, damn, like
Yeah.
this is pretty friggin' solid.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just kind of, you grow, and then you're like, oh,
That's
I want to try this one. I want to try
that's the
that one.
thing. You just
Yeah.
keep trying. It's like, the piquing the curiosity, like, and knowing that your palate goes through different phases. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why I said, like, that's why it's just a never ending, like, cycle of, you like this particular beer style now, you like another one later, you used to like this better,
Yeah.
all over the place.
And I know this is a loaded question, but do you have a favorite style of beer that you
Oh,
enjoy? I know there's, obviously,
God.
it's tough.
It's always, well, so I can tell you what I have been reaching for most recently. That's
Okay.
what I'll call my favorite style, and then I'll say like my OG favorite style. So, what I have been reaching for most recently are actually Hellas's. So,
Okay.
I think it's just because it's been so hot here in Georgia all summer. And the Hellas Lager for me is just such a beautiful beer. For those listening, Hellas is almost like an elevated light lager. So it's like you're taking it up a little bit of a notch.
Mm-hmm.
Hellas's are still very smooth. They have a little bit of malty sweetness to them. And it's almost like, when you want just that beer that you can drink, they're probably about 5.5% usually. When you just want to just drink, like you're like, I
Yeah.
don't want to think about it. It's always going to be good. Hellas lagers are in
Yeah.
there for me. But my OG style, I always have loved Belgian beers. If I had
Okay.
to pick like a style genre, everything from, I think Belgian triples were the first beer that like I jumped over from like the Blue Moons and the Saison, I mean, and the
Yeah.
Blue Moon and the Stellas and all of that. Belgians were, and I know a lot of people share that sentiment. They're like, "Oh my God, Belgian beers opened me up to like what craft beer could be."
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, Belgians, I mean, all the Belgians that people think about, like I said, the Belgian, the double, the triple, the quad, all those are very popular. But then also like Saisons is what I'm drinking right
Yeah.
now. Another really popular Belgian style that I really like. I think it's the yeast in Belgian beers, that is just so unique. It can do a whole lot of different things depending on what it's brewed with. And to me, the Belgian like genre is so like rich and kind of distinct. Like if you think about like, how many different, flavor profiles can be in the Belgian space,
Of course.
with that uniting piece of like the yeast being, like estery, like fruity producing, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of like clove phenolic flavors in there. I mean, that's if I had to pick, it's hard. It's hard as
I
you
know.
know, to pick a style. But yeah, that's the OG for sure.
Okay. So I'm assuming you like wild ales as well?
Well, a little
Yeah.
known fact about me,
Yeah.
I have an appreciation for them.
Okay.
I recently, but I wouldn't say like I love them. I don't
Okay.
like necessarily seek them out. Like I have been, from having to drink a ton of beer to prepare for my Cicerone tasting exam that I took back in January. Um, I had to drink everything, right? You cannot sit there and be like, well, I'm not going to drink blank. You have to be ready for anything that you get. And so I got a lot more familiar with, like mixed fermentation stuff, like you said, wild ales,
Okay.
lambics, gooses, and I recently went to a screening of that. It's a gosh, the name is escaping me right now. It's like bottle fermented. It's like
Hmm.
it's all about bottle fermentation.
Okay.
Basically the production of gooses. It's been on a tour across the country. It's like a shorter film, maybe 30 minutes, and
Oh, okay.
featuring breweries all across the country have been
Oh,
starting to show
awesome.
it. And so when I went to the event here in Atlanta, they actually had like a lambic tasting as a
Wow.
part of it. So we were
Oh,
bringing
that's
out,
cool.
yeah, a bunch of lambics, and I was like, okay, like I can do this I can do these, in small quantities.
Okay.
And it's so funny. That's just another thing, like you said, with taste. Some people like adore like tart,
Oh
funky,
yeah.
the funkier, the better, the more like a horse blanket or sweaty socks it smells like, they're excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I have an appreciation for it. It's like, that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, I know what it should taste like, and when it tastes like that, I'm like, yep, they hit this on the head. Now, regardless of whether I love it personally or not, that's a different story, but definitely have an appreciation for
Oh no, no, that's awesome because that's the one thing about
them.
craft beer is like
Hmm.
there is something for everyone.
Absolutely.
And I think it was Rachel that said it, Beers and Bierkowski. I think she said it on our episode.
Yeah,
She said she believed that there is one beer out there for everybody.
it is.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Like it's like like people say the same thing like about wine and stuff. I've tried different ones, can't really get into it.
Can't find it.
Yeah, I haven't been able
Can't
to find
find
it
it. I
yet.
got you. Yeah.
Um, but it's just one of those things. I feel like there is something, yeah, because some people like the tart stuff, and then
Yeah.
there's so many different options, and there are also breweries are catering to the people that like seltzers and stuff like that
Yes.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I mean, there is a big thing for seltzers, and I
Hmm.
recently bought for the first time two 6 packs of NA beers because I was really curious about from Athletic Brewing, which is
Okay.
one of the bigger NA producers,
Yeah.
because they released like a Oktoberfest and a Helles, and I was like, I'm curious. Like, you got me. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see what this tastes like. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's something literally for everybody. Some people really like the taste of an NA beer. So, literally anything in the beer space,
Yeah, and
is
that's good.
fine.
That's one I haven't tried, so I'm gonna have to maybe give
Yeah.
it a whirl. Maybe like when I'm winding it down at the end of the night, I'll
Exactly.
have one
Right.
of
When you're
those.
winding
Yeah.
it down, you can drink it, like I said, right before you're going to sleep. I mean, it's like, I think when you drink beer, there's times where you really just you like the flavor of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the perfect time for when you're like, I'm not really trying to like get buzzed. I just want the flavor profile of this, and the NA works in that case.
100%. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you too, because obviously you work with, quite a few breweries. Do you have any like funny or interesting taproom stories or anything like that?
Yeah, well, so one of the taproom stories that I think like is most memorable for me was actually the taproom story where I got my name, the Beery
Okay.
Godmother. So I have, like I said, because I love beer, and a lot of us know that once craft beer stores really started selling beer in bulk, they weren't. A lot of them were not selling single cans of beer. It was always a 4 pack
Mm-hmm.
or a 6 pack or something like that,
100%.
and I am super big into, fitness and trying to balance, not drink a ton and all this. And so I would be like, well, if I go to a store and I buy, I don't know, I want to try 4 different beers, that's 4 4 packs. I can't drink
Yeah.
all of this. I'm very conscious. I've always been really conscious of just like beer has a shelf life,
Yeah.
you can't hold on to it forever. You need to let it go,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so anyway, I would go around to tap rooms, brewery tap rooms in the city, and just drop off beer. Like I would be like, they'd be like, "Oh, do you?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Just this is good beer. It's gonna go to waste." You know, in some cases, I would give it to friends and whatnot. But like, if it's a certain type of style that I knew my friends also really weren't interested in, but maybe I like it, I know somebody at a brewery can appreciate it. So
Yeah.
I was kind of going around and doing this, and I was dropping off, some beer and like sharing some beer with, a brewery that, is really popular here in Atlanta, Monday Night Brewing, as a matter of fact. And I came in with beer, but then I also came in with like this duffel bag. Like I would come in with like a cooler bag, because I'm,
Yeah.
again, temperature, very, very important. And people are kind of joking around, and like, here she comes, here comes the beer fairy godmother again. Here she's coming to drop off this beer, and then a
That's
really
funny.
good friend of mine was like, my God, you're the beery godmother, and we all just like laughed
That's
it off at
awesome.
the time, like ha ha ha. This is like years before I started anything,
Yeah.
and it became something that I was just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I like the fact that I can share with people, who are going to appreciate it. That's always been my thing, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
share with people who can appreciate it or who are really curious, right? Like who are like, yeah. I really want to try this beer. And so, that kind of later on it became my moniker. And when I got ready to start my company, it was like, well, I have to be the beery godmother. And, it's more so I'm dropping off beer knowledge as opposed to beer. I still make beer drops though.
There you go.
I still do that. I still do it. I mean, that's always like fun. It's just fun. Those are always my favorite moments in tap rooms, when I show up and the faces of the folks that are working behind the bar who, have been like standing up all day dealing with, a bunch of different people, busy tap rooms. They got a bunch, changing kegs and doing all this. And I just pop by and I'm like, here you go, 4-pack, whatever. And they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. It's just, they work hard and, so I also, now that I have this moniker, I have to, I have to hold up to it. So.
Oh, of course. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, you know what I want to ask you if you have any other stories, but before you do that, is Monday Night Brewing, is it wrestling based? Like, was it like because I mean, it just reminded me of like the Monday Night Wars and WCW and all that stuff because they were in Atlanta.
No,
so.
I don't think it has any. I think it Monday Night, I think, really started, because of, like a group of folks that used to do like Bible studies in the basement on Monday nights. Yeah. And then over time it has evolved to really be, this whole thing of like, they say like weekends are overrated, right? So like basically to try to make you look forward to Monday,
Okay.
And they're one of those breweries that, a lot of breweries I know will be closed on Mondays,
Yeah.
And they make it a point to like be open, like, relatively late on a Monday, for people to come and drink. So, I don't think it leads to any affiliation.
No, that was because I was just thinking, because I was like, wait a second, it's Atlanta, WCW.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a good guess. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, right?
Yeah, but that's awesome that they stay open, like, late on Monday, especially with Monday Night Football. So it's like the perfect time for that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you a Braves fan? I am
a Braves fan. I am a Braves fan. It's funny enough, the Braves are actually the reason why I landed in Atlanta, period. So when I was a kid, again, huge sports fan. I played basketball from when I was maybe like 6 all the way through high school. So, basketball, football, tennis, like I would watch anything that was sports related. And I remember when I was maybe like 10 or so, I got into watching baseball. And, at the time, the Maryland area, we only had one team, the Baltimore Orioles. The Nationals were not a thing yet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, this is not really interesting to me, right? And so on cable back in the day, the only 2 stations that were not based out of like DC were, WGN, so you could watch the Cubs and the White Sox, or TBS, so you could watch the Braves.
Oh yeah.
And I started watching the Braves like right when they made one of their like first championship runs in like 91, 92.
Yeah.
And I mean back, Fulton County Stadium days, like, and I was just like obsessed. Like I was a huge Brave fan since then. I was like, I am living in Atlanta when I'm an adult. This is 10-year-old me. I was like, I'm coming to Atlanta. And from that point on, it was like everything they would show, how they like pan around the city. Do all those shots, and they did the chop and all. I mean, I was so into it. And so the Braves actually are responsible for me being in Atlanta, period. I don't think I ever would have had it on my map, to be like kind of randomly, like as a kid, interested in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So good success
awesome. Now. Yeah, that's friggin', that's so sweet because I'm such a like huge like Braves nerd.
Are you?
Like,
cool.
Oh yeah.
Like, man, yeah, that's awesome.
I grew up the same way. It was like watching, like, because my dad's a Dodger fan. Like I grew up with like watching like Chipper Jones and stuff like that, and like watching Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, and
oh my God! So you're talking my language. I have to stop you right there because we're both talking. We're showing our age, but it's all good. I remember when they brought up like Chipper's first game when they brought him up from the minors. I will never forget it. Like you remember when these different 100%. Players came through. Like you said, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tommy Glavine. Jeff
Even
Blount,
Steve,
all of
yeah, even Steve Avery, I felt
Steve
like
Avery.
because he got hurt a bunch, but
He sure
he was
did, but
so good when he was healthy.
I know he was solid. I mean, he was super solid, and it's just crazy that 3 pitcher rotation they had. You knew, and then
Mm-hmm.
the bullpen. I mean, it was all the, like you said, it was Fred McGriff and
Oh, I know. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so I see why you're a Braves fan because those were the
Oh,
glory
yeah.
days. I'm telling you.
And plus, it was like you got to watch 80 games because it was
Yes.
like they always showed
Yeah.
they always televised half the game, so it was like you had to
Yes.
watch 82 game or 181 games. I mean, so I
Yeah.
mean, like even now, I have just so happen to look at my phone and they're down to the Cardinals right now, but it's all right. I mean, they
It's
just
okay.
took three. They took 3 out of
Yeah.
4 against the Dodgers, so I'm good with it.
But that's the best part to your point. Like I started also watching the Braves for the off season of basketball or football.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for baseball's in the spring, spring. And so basketball would
Yeah.
end, playoffs were ending at that point, like in June. You had nothing to watch. It's like, let's watch this baseball's, in the middle of chasing things at that
Oh,
time. So
for
pretty cool.
sure.
Yeah.
And plus, I feel like Atlanta is such like a huge sports town. I mean,
Oh
like
wow.
you got a ton. I mean, you got the Bulldogs just won the national title a couple last year and the year
Uh-huh.
before that.
Yep.
The
Sure
Braves won
did.
in 21. I
Yep.
mean, and there's just the Hawks are like with Trey Young, and I
They're
know they're getting
always, I
better.
know we're
So
always like on the precipice, like we've gotten substantially better.
yeah,
Yeah. And the
oh,
Falcons,
that's awesome. I know. Yeah, I
Falcons,
didn't want to say
I
that, but I'm a
know it's
Packer fan,
okay.
so
It's okay.
but I still
Listen,
feel bad. I was
yeah, I
like, man, that
know.
was rough.
God, I have season tickets to the Falcons, and it can be painful at times. But every year we have hope.
Oh yeah, I mean even this year, because
Yeah.
I'm being a Packer fan, like I got to worry about Jordan Love, but I
Oh,
think he's going to be okay. So we'll see.
yes. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to be cautiously optimistic,
Oh, yes. I agree.
but we'll see.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have any are there any fun spots like brewery spots around because I know it's called the Battery, right? Over
Yeah.
at Truist.
Uh huh.
Are there any fun like brewery spots over there, or maybe not far away? Because I mean, I
Yeah,
definitely
there
want to get out there
are.
to see a game.
Yeah, they are. There are actually. So inside of the stadium, you have Terrapin Brewing Company,
Okay.
which Terrapin is out of Athens, Georgia, where
Okay.
University of Georgia is.
Yeah.
But they have several outposts, obviously, and they decided to plant their flag kind of in Atlanta's like city limit, city slash suburban, at
Yeah.
the Battery. That was their first, location outside of Athens by
Okay.
University of Georgia. So Terrapin is there. And then also, I'm trying to think about like breweries semi close or like around ish, like not too far from the stadium. I mean, I think you have Reformation Brewery, which is maybe 2 exits away
Okay.
on the interstate. Reformation is originally out of a smaller suburb in northwest of the city called Woodstock, Georgia.
Okay.
But they have opened up their second location, right over here. Like I said, probably within minutes of the Battery, probably 5 minutes, 5 minute drive.
That's awesome.
So you have those two, and I know I'm probably forgetting one. Those are the first two that are like popping into my head right now that I can think of that are like, where you don't have to like drive a ways.
Yeah.
You keep it, when you're going for the game, it's like, you're trying to, but then also we do have, which kind of takes the place of a brewery. I don't know if you all have Yard House.
Oh yeah, we have Yard House over
Yeah,
here.
so
Yes.
yeah, out west. So Yard House is in the Battery,
Okay.
which is cool because they normally keep a pretty good, selection of like, tons of craft beer and a lot of it's
Awesome.
local.
Yeah, and you get a yard of beer, so there you
Exactly. So I mean, just complete the trifecta.
go.
Hmm.
I want to, because I know you said you like donuts, but I mean, are you a burger person too, or no?
Oh my God, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, same. So
Yes.
if someone was going to to Atlanta or like in the surrounding areas,
Yeah. Uh huh.
and they wanted to get a burger, where should they go?
Oh man. Okay. So, couple of different places, I think. So, the burger that I think is my personal favorite comes from a spot called Fred's Meat and Bread.
Well, that sounds great
Oh
already.
my God,
Yeah.
no, seriously. I mean, so they only have one location and it's in what is one of our food halls, in
Okay.
kind of Old Fourth Ward, Krog Street. It's also adjacent to probably our biggest beer bar. So, it's like a perfect combination. Um,
Got it.
but the reason why I love Fred so much is because it's a basic burger. It's like, two patties, cheese, you can put onions on it,
Yeah.
but it's like one of those like smash burger style, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like that type of a thing. Also, we have a steak restaurant that, they're known for like, being kind of like a highbrow steakhouse. But
Okay.
then during lunch and also at the late night, they do a burger, which is just
Okay.
impeccable. They're called the Marcel. I mean, I will go ahead and give a shout to Holman and Finch, which is another spot here that held the crown for a really, really long time, I think, of best burger
Okay.
in the city. They had a design, and kudos to their marketing. They had a design where every night they would only make like 22 of their burger.
Oh
22,
wow.
and you had to be there like like either in the line or at the bar or whatever to be able to get served this beer,
Yeah.
I mean this burger. And so now, I mean, it has since expanded. I think there's also there might be a Holman and Finch at the Battery, now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh wow.
But
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, fantastic burgers, everything house made, house made ketchup, house made mustard, house made pickle, when they're doing all the
Oh yeah.
house made everything, the bun and all that. So for certain burger person. And if you beer and a burger is like the best combination ever. Still, it's unbeaten for me.
Yeah. Oh, same. And I always say, like, if I'm having a good burger and a good beer, like, there's a brewery out here, I think I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's called Everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Everywhere Brewing out there in Orange, and they
Mm-hmm.
usually have one called. There's a little pop up that they have, and it's called Back to the Burger,
Oh.
and it's like looks like Back to the Future kind of themed.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Oh, and it's like when you like I want to say like I had like a hazy or maybe it was a pilsner. I can't even remember. I was just so enthralled by like the
Yes.
burger and I was doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, burger and a beer together. It's like burger and wings or burger. I mean no I mean sorry, beer and wings or beer and
The
pizza or
beer and
beer and
pizza is
burger.
that's the three. I was just gonna say those are my three all time favorites. Like when I want to have when I'm eating any one of those, I want a beer.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Yeah.
Are you a thin crust, or what do you like?
God. Right now, I'm definitely a thin crust person. I'm
Me
like a
too.
New York style slice. I literally just had some pizza this weekend, and I was
There you
like,
go.
oh my God. Like, I went specifically to the spot that does New York style. I was like, past
Awesome.
a couple other ones, I was like, I want this thinner crust, foldable pizza.
Oh, of course. No, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's like, I mean, I like that. I like the thin crust too because then I don't feel like I overdid it.
Me too.
Plus, because if I'm having it, I'm probably having
Yeah.
a beer or
Yeah.
two, so
For
I
sure.
don't want to feel like I overdid it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Um, so with donuts,
Mhm.
because I was, because I kind of sent you the thing before. I was going to ask you about your hangover cure.
Yes.
Are donuts the hangover cure,
Oh man. Oh,
or is what
what is
is it
my
for you?
hangover cure? So,
Yeah.
more and more, the older and older you get, you do need to have that hangover cure considered,
Uh huh.
right? You got it because you just never know. You might have a night where you're like, oh, I didn't even really drink that much, but yet you wake
Yeah.
up with that headache. So for me, it is usually a couple of things. So it's going to be number one, you got to have, like your Advil. You got to have your caffeine. So it can be like a Coke, it could be coffee, it
Mm-hmm.
could be whatever. And then, of course, you got to follow up with your electrolytes.
Oh yeah.
Something. So, I mean, a lot of times it's just easy to grab like Gatorade or something like that. But sometimes I keep like at home, I have like one of those like electrolyte, you know, just like things, like the, what is it? It's not
Oh,
the,
the liquid IV ones.
similar
There
to
you go.
liquid IV, right? Similar to liquid IV. But I have it in like a canister.
Oh, there
I'm
you
like,
go.
screw the packs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I have it in something like that, and I'll always make sure I have that. And then if I know that it might be like a day, like if I'm going out for a whole day to a festival or something like that, I
Yeah.
will take like milk thistle or like a
Okay.
charcoal, like the charcoal vitamins or whatever. Something that will help with the digestion of this liquor. I mean, and
Okay.
of course, like we said, things have gotten more extensive. I didn't used to care about any of this when I was in my like 20s.
Oh, same.
Didn't
Yeah.
care. I was like, whatever. I'll just make it. I'm fine. But these days, it's just an actual hangover. It can be very unforgiving.
Oh yeah.
So that is my cure. And of course, I mean, you gotta eat whatever I'm eating after that. I mean, it's gonna be, it's got to be bread. Some type of bread is going to have to be in there. So salads, not happening.
Oh
Chipotle
yeah.
bowl, probably not happening. Like it's got to
Yeah.
be probably like a burger or like pizza, chicken sandwich. Chick-fil-A, something like that is probably going to be the food I'm looking for when I'm really like need to sit down.
Yeah. No, and I feel it too. And like, because I mean, well, mine. People are probably tired of hearing it because I mention it a lot of the times on the show. But it's usually like vitamins for me.
Yeah.
I'll pop vitamins in the morning. I'll do a men's one a day.
Yes.
Vitamin C.
Yes.
Water. But you know what's crazy though? Even going back to like, because there were years where I just drank whiskey a lot.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So I would get hungover, but I was still pretty productive.
Yes.
Being hungover, like I would get up and I would still go grocery shopping.
Yeah, and still yeah.
And I'd come home and make myself the biggest burrito and eat like 3 bites and fall asleep.
Yes, totally it. I mean, the nights that I have like started eating food and left it and like fallen asleep halfway, yeah.
Well, I would tell my buddies all the time, like, because they would we would all go get breakfast burritos in the morning when we were hungover, and they would be mowing theirs down. I'm like, don't eat it that fast. And they would mow it down, and then they'd be throwing it up.
Right. I was going to say, your body can't take that. It can't take that. Yeah.
You got to eat like 2 or 3 bites, lay down for a little bit, take another couple bites, and lay down for a little bit.
Lay down a little bit. Yeah. It's so funny, just like you said, how it does evolve, and I think like preparing. I'm so much more prepared, like for stuff like that now than I ever used to be. I mean, I try to keep like my friends laugh at me because I have like. I always have like chicken nuggets or chicken strips and like fries on hand. Like have an air fryer. I'm like, sometimes that you get home and you're like, this is what we need. Like, I don't feel like calling and waiting on food. Like, so
100%. And then a lot of times you don't even want to leave. Like the only time I would do it is like if like there was a Mexican food place that was not far from my house. So every once in a while I would wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I just need like some of that in my life or in or around my mouth. But just toss it, shovel it in there, and I'll be all right.
Yes, exactly. Yes, totally.
I always wanted to go to the place in Atlanta, but I've heard it's closed down. Like I think I talked to Grant when I talked to Grant McCauley from the Brave, or like one of the Braves beat writers. Because I always wanted to go see Gladys Knight's. Go to Gladys Knight's restaurant.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing it on the Food Network and thinking like, holy shit, this looks so good.
It was legendary. I used to go, I mean, it was a treat. Like, it probably closed, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. It hasn't been, like, super duper, a long time ago. It was semi-recent. But, I mean, they had literally the best chicken and waffles. I mean, and
that's what I heard. Yeah.
Like, of course, we have Waffle House here, and everybody's like, well, it wasn't better than Waffle House. I'm like, well... But the chicken always was. I mean, like the waffle, the waffle definitely was good. And they, you could get varieties of waffles. And, of course, that's when you get like peach topped waffle, the compote and all this stuff. But I mean, they just had really good, aside from the chicken and waffles part, they just had really good like soul food to me too. So it's unfortunate that you can't,
I know.
Gladys and Ron's, it was a legend.
Yeah, I'll just be stuck watching it on diners, drive-ins, and dives, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Not a paid advertisement.
Right. Exactly.
You mentioned the peaches earlier. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, because obviously Georgia's the peach state. Is that a big do you see that a lot more? Like when they're throwing it like in the hazies or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, so I think you'll see it, but you don't see it as much as you would think. So I think there was like we were talking about trends earlier, I think there was a time where people were really, really excited about fruited sours and fruited IPAs, and you were getting a lot of milkshake stuff, and you know, and you still will get it. I think every year you get at least one or, a couple, I should say, of like peach style blank, whether it's like I said, a sour or a hazy or, something like that. So it is a popular, everybody loves the Georgia peach, or like peach
Yeah.
wings or, people will use it as a descriptor
Okay.
sometimes for their beer just to kind of draw you into the fact that it's Georgia. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have had like mixed fermentation saisons that have like a little bit of a peat. Brewers have been using it in some of the mixed ferm
Okay.
beers recently. But yeah, I think Georgia beer. You know, like I said, it definitely harkens to some of like the traditions of Georgia, but then tries to do some new things too.
Oh, for sure. Because I was even thinking, like, even if they did like an extract, so it wouldn't be as cloudy or something like that, you might be
Yeah,
able to get just like little hints of it on the
yeah,
back
yeah,
end or
yeah.
something.
Sometimes you do. I think to me, that's always been the best ones I've had. Is like when like you
Yeah.
said, it's just a hint, right? It's like a little bit of peat
Mm-hmm.
in there, just enough to, and more so like the actual peach flavor, not a candied peach or like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like so the
100%.
actual peach is always really good. And those tend to come out spring, summer,
Okay.
during peach season. Peaches are Georgia's thing, you know?
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you too, just a couple things, just a couple more things, because
Yeah.
I keep things keep popping up in my head.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Go ahead.
so we mentioned the donut earlier. What's your favorite? What's your go-to donut?
Oh man, go to donut is a glazed yeast. Very simple.
Okay.
Glazed yeast. I mean, I'll do
All
or
right.
glazed yeast if it's too late in the morning, like the glaze, you got to catch those things like right.
Oh yeah.
I'll go with an old fashioned, like a
Oh,
glazed old
so
fashioned
good.
cake. Those are my two. I mean, I'm an experimenter. I like to try a bunch of different flavors or whatnot, but at the end of the day, those are my two for sure.
Nice. I love a good maple bar.
Yes.
But
Oh
I also love like
man.
an apple fritter, like
Yeah.
an apple
Oh my God.
fritters.
Yes. Both.
That's
Both.
yeah.
Yes. Speaking my language,
With a
definitely.
cup of coffee, it's
Yes.
can't
Unbeaten.
beat it.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, so that's
Yes.
so good. Are there any good donut shop? Like good because I know there's like the
Ooh.
famous ones like around the country, like Voodoo
Yes.
Donuts is like a big thing. But I've had it. It's all right out here though.
Yes. Oh my God. And I'm gonna have to like look this since
Oh, you're fine.
I gotta
Yeah.
look this up because there's this I don't want to miss this donut spot that I go to. I haven't been to it in probably like 6 months, and I don't know why it's like like
It's all right.
escaping me. Let's see. So Donut Dollies.
Okay.
Donut Dollies in Atlanta to me has some of the best donuts, particularly their old fashioned donut. It's just insane, out of this world. Also, I don't know. There is a donut shop kind of in a suburb of Atlanta that's kind of right. If you've ever heard people in Atlanta talk, they talk about inside of the perimeter or outside of the perimeter. It's like the
Oh, gotcha.
interstate that goes in a circle around the city, and
Mm-hmm.
the circular enclosed part is kind of like city, and then external
Okay.
to it is kind of suburbs. There's one right outside of the city that is like your more traditional donut shop in Chamblee, Georgia, and the name's escaping me right now. But like I said, definitely Donut Dollies is my spot for sure for donuts. And then I also like, oh man, we just got a actually Revolution Donuts, which is
Okay.
all down. I think when I mentioned like Fred's Meat and Bread, and I mentioned this like beer bar, that place is very close to all of that too. So you can kind of get everything. You can get your burger, you can get your beer, and you can get your donut
Yeah.
all together.
That sounds
Revolution is
amazing.
very
Maybe I can get Fred to combine a donut
good.
with the burger somehow.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, we do have that in Atlanta. There's
Oh,
a couple
okay.
of places that serve burgers on a donut. So there's a brewery
Ooh,
called Torch Top here that I think as their brunch they do take a glazed Krispy Kreme and
that sounds
serve
awesome.
a smash burger in between this glazed Krispy Kreme. I've never had it, but it looks so good.
Yeah.
It looks so good. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you're like, I got to do it. I got to do it. I mean, a donut bun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What more can you ask for?
What more? Exactly.
Yeah. Before we finish up, and because you and I, we could stay on and chit
We
chat after.
could, I know.
People don't get to listen to that part. But if you could like give some advice to someone, maybe they just started getting into craft beer,
Yeah.
and and if you were gonna give them advice when they go to a brewery, what do you think that would be?
I think my biggest advice is to stay curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. Those are the two biggest things I think that people sometimes get intimidated about. Okay, I'm in this setting. There's all these people around. It might be a busy Saturday or whatever. There's
Of
all these
course.
people around. I don't want to bother the bartenders or the beer tenders. I don't want to. I'm scared to ask for samples. I don't want to do all of that.
Yeah.
Make sure that when you're going to a brewery, you're asking questions, you're asking them to describe what something tastes like. You're asking for samples of that. Just do the things. I think breweries are made for that. A lot of them are really trying to push, let that customer feel comfortable, let that customer sample as much beer, within reason that they like. They want to try a couple
Of
things.
course, yeah.
Don't be afraid, to try something different or try something that you are intrigued by, right? Because it just might surprise you. That's always been my biggest advice to folks who are curious about getting into beer. They say, well, what if I don't like it? I'm like, well, you don't like it.
Yeah.
You tried. There is something that you will like. So I think that's the biggest thing is breweries are fun hangout spots. But don't be afraid to figure out what you like not what your friend likes, not what your husband likes, wife likes, partner likes. Don't just get the thing that everybody else is ordering because they all ordered it. Figure out what you like. That's usually my biggest advice.
100%. I love that because everybody has a different palate.
Absolutely.
Not everyone's the same. We're all gonna find different things. Like even when we talked about cheeseburgers, like I just order mine plain, just meat and cheese.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like
me too.
What more do you need?
Cheese. I don't really need anything else. So yeah, but you said, some people love it fully dressed with a whole bunch of different things, and that's not me.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I always make the jokes like if you want a salad on your burger, salad bar, but
salad.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just joshing everybody out there, but this has been super fun though. I'm glad we got to do this, and
this is fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again, and if I can get out to Atlanta, I actually reached out to is it the Real Ale Sharpton?
Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, the Real Ale Sharpton.
Really nice guy.
He is.
Yeah, really nice guy. Yeah, I told him we'll have to set something up maybe towards October, November.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great. He is
really
great.
Nice guy.
Definitely a pioneer in the Atlanta beer space. Has been writing about beer and being present in beer when he was the only person of color, only Black person doing it.
Yeah.
And definitely, has been super helpful to a bunch of us in the industry, just with knowledge and he's always willing to help, connect the dots for folks and supports, everybody in the beer scene. So definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's something that's, needed a lot more. I mean, obviously the female side of it as well. That's why I love everything that Pink Boots does.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
It's awesome. But then also, just trying to get people of color, whether you're white, Mexican or African American,
yeah,
anything
absolutely.
like that. Getting everybody involved because I feel like, it's just, it's craft beer's for everybody.
Craft beer is for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's my biggest thing. When I'm doing anything, when I do Beer Fact Fridays, when I do anything that I'm ever putting out publicly, that's the biggest thing I'm trying to emphasize is that it really is for everybody.
Exactly. Well, like I said, we'll stay on and chat, but I really appreciate this. And
absolutely.
Thank you again. And everybody listening, stay tuned for the outro and also follow Latreace at the Beery Godmother. Just how it sounds on Instagram. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right.
What's up, guys? It's Lucy from Louies Liquor in Azusa, California, and we are live here at King's Brewing on the release day of my very first beer. It's called Lucy's Pina Lollipop Frose. I am super excited about this Frose. It is coming in at 7%, and I'm so excited. And guess what? We are doing a show about this beer. And Jonathan over here said he's not going to drink it until the day of the show. So I'm super excited for him to try it. I tried it for the very first time today, and I can't wait for all of you guys to try it. So cheers, everyone.
All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Or enjoyed the interview with Latreace. Obviously, at the Berry Godmother, super awesome. And then also you got to to hear Lucy at the end. Stay tuned for a release, or not a release date, but a date that I'll keep you posted on that when we actually do record the show. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned for everything. I fucked that up. Sorry, guys. Either way, I'm leaving it in. All right. Well, take care. Have a good week. And I will end it with a movie quote. Because my sister Kyla sent me this one yesterday. And it ain't worth winning if you can't win big. Take care, Tata.